Now, Liechtenstein has suffered one of the major cybersecurity attacks in the history of this industry. It involves a breach of Ultimate Beneficial Owner Register and information of around 31,000 companies, holding entities and foundations was accessed by the hackers. Now, I'm showing you an article from Reuters on the screen right now, and you can check it out yourself with the link in the description below. But what actually happened is between 29th and 30th July, a team of hackers was able to access the beneficial owner register in the Liechtenstein's official registry. They accessed 31,000 companies' beneficial owner data that included mainly the date of birth, names and nationalities of those structures. It was reported that no data related to asset holding was disclosed, but nonetheless, a disclosure or a breach of ownership data in itself is very sensitive, because once you have the name and date of birth and other personal information, if the hackers have those sort of information, they can then extrapolate or reverse engineer further much more information than what they would want to do, right? The information on the assets were not accessed, but it is a serious breach when it comes to wealth industry as a whole. Now, officials in Liechtenstein have commented that they are looking into this incident, but yeah, I think there is some work for them to do, because we as service providers and our clients who have family wealth structures, we put a lot of trust into these jurisdictions that the assets and the information for our clients will remain private and will remain protected. So it is a major development in the industry for us and for our clients, and we'll see how it progresses. But what we can do and what we can learn from this incident is that we think that if a jurisdiction is private, that it is also secret. So for example, Liechtenstein or Dubai and DIFC or Switzerland, anywhere that you open any family wealth structure, is it a foundation or a trust or holding company, there is a database. That database records every possible thing about a KYC requirement, right? So your passport copies, your name, your place of birth, any personal identification that they need for their KYC requirements. Of course, we will provide them because that's a legal requirement. However, that gets into a database, even though that database is private and secure. Again, incidents like this reminds us that people can access those databases. So as I said, that privacy does not mean secrecy, and then there are these databases, right? And these are centralized databases. They have the cybersecurity risk. For example, in the past, we have seen Panama Papers, right? A huge database of investors and private money was leaked to the public. And what do you have to learn from this is that when you're creating structures, of course, our priority for our clients is to create private structures so their wealth can remain protected, so that people with ill intention cannot come after the assets for our clients. That is our intention when we are creating these structures. But we should not create it with the intention that, hey, I have these assets, let me hide these assets in these structures overseas in Liechtenstein and Switzerland, and then my home country government and my tax officers would not know about these structures. And if they don't know about these structures, I don't have to pay taxes on these structures. Because with the incident like this, with the incident like Panama Papers, these things can come out, and once they do come out, you would be at risk of tax non-compliances and legal non-compliances as well. So of course, when you are creating these structures, privacy is an important part. But the goal should be, we don't want the information to come out, but even if the information comes out, you were that much compliant that it does not affect you. Now, that's the first lesson. The second lesson is that when you are creating any sort of structures, right, you also need to understand the cybersecurity policies of those entities. Now, it can be private entities, it can be CSPs, it can be company set of firms, it can be, again, government registers like, a UBO register in DIFC or ADGM. You need to understand what the cybersecurity policy is and what the risk and threats are, especially with increasing, impact of AI and advanced technologies. These databases are becoming easier to infiltrate, right? And so when you are creating a new structure, always ask your service provider, ask the jurisdiction that you're working in, what is the data breach policy, what is the data security policy, who has the access, what is the policy in terms a breach does happen, who has the governing access of those data. So just so that you are prepared and you are aware of where you are giving your passport copies, where you're giving your KYC information, so that it does not come as a surprise that, okay, I was not expecting that. Of course, as I said, with the advancement in the capabilities of AI, these databases are becoming easier to breach until the cybersecurity of these databases catch up to the capabilities of AI, this risk remains vulnerable. Now, again, to close this off, trust, foundations, holding structures still remains valuable for our clients. The main idea or the main purpose of these structures is one, asset protection. So, anyone with, ill intentions does not come after your assets. The second one is succession planning, because if you own assets in your personal name, they go under probate, they go under legal battles. But if you own it through foundations and trust and holding companies, the asset succession happens as you have defined into the charters and the bylaws and trust deed of those structures. So you bypass all the court processes and the legal conflicts. Those benefits still remains valid. What has updated is that with this breach, you need to be just mindful about, we are preparing for a structure that is protected and private, but the information, if it ever comes out, we are also protected in that case as well, that you created your structure in a way that you were not needing that secrecy. Of course, as much as possible, I know that sometimes clients have complicated legal issues, that they want to put their structures into a position where those legal issues does not affect these structures that they have put here. And in those situations, some sort of privacy, some sort of secrecy within the legal limits is required. And that's the risk that we take when we are doing these structures. Now, that's it for today. If you would like me and my team to review your family wealth, and if you want us to help you with any of the foundations and trust, we work in multiple jurisdictions, including Switzerland, Liechtenstein, Dubai, Singapore, Cook Islands, as well as Mauritius and Malaysia. So if you want us to look at those structures and help you create a family wealth structure that is suiting your personal needs, you can reach out to me using the link in the description below. That's it for today, and I will see you in the next video.